starting with making a statement where Alex is going to make a few statements.
Yep.
And I'll see what they are and how I feel about them. And, yeah, let's start there.
This is a big one.
This is
a big one. The first one.
Oh, the first one.
Yeah.
I was
the
like,
first
is this
one.
making a statement
Yeah,
bigger than
this is a
all the
big
others?
one. No, okay. Our first statement. If Shohei Ohtani leaves the Angels, Mike Trout will follow shortly after.
So, Mike Trout made some comments about this recently. Not specifically like if Shohei is gone, I'm out or I'm staying. But basically, like, whenever I come back to the East Coast, whenever I'm in New York or Philly, like, I hear from my friends. I hear from the fans. Like, come on, get out. Like, come play over here.
Yeah.
And he basically was like, I hear it. And it gets to me more so when I'm over there than it does out. I pay more attention to it. So here's my thoughts here. I know the only reason Trout is still there is because of how loyal he is, right?
Oh,
He's
loyal by default.
He signed the contract to play there. He wants to win a World Series there, and he has been very vocal as much. And recently he was asked by Ken Rosenthal about this on the Fox game, and Trout said, I signed the contract to play here. My goal is to win a World Series here. And that's great. But if this team this year gets to the point where Shohei Ohtani either gets traded or walks at the end of the year, right? If they're out of contention at the trade deadline, which I don't believe is going to be the case, you got to trade Shohei. And if they don't make the playoffs, by all accounts, what we've heard is he's gone.
Yeah.
So then if you lose Shohei, you almost have to start over. You almost have, like, are you starting over with Mike Trout, who's current, like, on the back end of his prime, I would say, 31, 32? Do you start there, or do you go to him and do every baseball fan a service in the entire world and say, Mike, we will not have Shohei back. We have to kind of start over, and we want you to go win. We want you. We're gonna go through.
You deserve to win,
right? We're gonna go through a rebuild.
Yeah.
And we don't think you deserve to go through that rebuild with us. And that's sort of like what happened in Detroit when Justin was leaving but wanted to stay with the Tigers, but they were basically like, we are going through a rebuild. And he was like, well, okay. And then he ends up moving on. And that's what comes to mind for me here is if they go through a full rebuild, is Mike Trout supposed to just go through that with them? I don't think so.
Mike Trout is 31 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, he's still young and still one of the greatest players in the game, but as you mentioned, on the back end of his prime.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what the Angels would get, what a team would give up in a trade for someone like Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout? Now, are you getting the entire farm system plus 1 to 2 star players? Are you getting like a whole rack of already great Major League Baseball players that are like in the league right now? Like, it is going to be mind-blowing what the Angels could get for either of those players, let alone both of them.
This won't happen, but it's fun to think about.
Yeah.
A trade. Like, what if a trade involved both Trout and Shohei at the trade deadline? Like, what if the Angels go that stretch they went on last year where they lost like 14 in a row, and then at the trade deadline they're under 500 and they're like, we gotta redo it, we gotta restart. Trout, he has the contract there, the no trade clause. Like, Trout, are you okay moving on? Imagine a trade with both Shohei and Trout. It would look unlike anything we've ever seen before. It's not like, just give them the whole minor league system. No, it's like your big league young stars.
Yep.
You know, we're talking like big league stars, all-stars, multiple getting traded for these guys on top of like your number 1 and 2 prospect. It would be wild. But you'd have to, like, to get a Shohei and Trout, you'd have to give up like a Ronald Acuna and Austin Riley. You know, it's like something like that. Like, it'd be crazy. Hypothetical speaking here. I'm not saying the Braves are like, they should trade Ronald Acuna.
Yeah.
I love Ronnie, but I digress. I think this is true. But I don't think it's next year. I think if Shohei leaves within the next 3 years, Trout's gone.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. He deserves to win and be playing in the postseason,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like, if it's with the Angels or another team. Okay, on to our next statement. Ben.
Yep.
The Yankees are in trouble.
I'm going to say false.
Okay.
This is not true. The Yankees are 14-11, and they're not playing good baseball.
Mm-hmm.
That I think speaks volumes to how good the team is.
It's just a bunch of whiffs. The Yankees lineup.
That's great. They're 14-11. They're not playing good baseball. Their second best pitcher hasn't pitched yet this year, which apparently we've finally gotten some signs that he's heading in the right direction towards coming back in Carlos Rodon. Judge isn't hitting as well as I think he will this year. Anthony Volpe appears to be heating up. I did a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
He was my one down. I said, just give Anthony Volpe time. He's a star and he'll be fine. He has been, and he's been pretty good of late. So he's playing better. I think the Yankees being at 14-11 with their struggles, this is why this question is being asked, because they just lost the first series to the Twins since 2001?
Since 2000, and they're fourth in the East right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
So that's
It's
why
tough
we're
for the
talking about
Yankees.
this. But you look at it, and they're 14-11, not playing great baseball. To me, that says more about the team and how good they are than their struggles right now saying how bad they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not concerned.
Not concerned.
All right. Moving on to our next statement. The Mariners still have a top 5 rotation without Robbie Ray.
This sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Robbie Ray announced out for the year. That's a big blow. That's a huge blow. And coming off 2 years removed from a Cy Young Award in the American League, and then last year had a down year by his standards, had some flashes of being really good, but, just not the best year for him. But that guy's still in there. And now the injury, and he's out for the year. So this rotation that I was so high on, and is a reason that I said they'd make the playoffs and have the potential to make a pretty deep run in the playoffs, takes a big hit. So are the Mariners still a top 5 rotation? With Castillo, Robbie Ray, Gilbert, George Kirby, I would have said yes. Without Robbie Ray, we're looking at Luis Castillo. Great. Top tier. Logan Gilbert, who this year has been okay. George Kirby, same boat. And then Chris Flexen and Marco Gonzalez is what I guess. No.
Yeah.
No, sadly. And that sucks because this team was built around their dominant staff. But let's say Logan Gilbert I think Logan Gilbert figures it out. And his last start, from what I saw, and his new splitter, it looks really good. I think we could be seeing Logan Gilbert figuring it out and becoming dominant from now on. But even still, Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, and then say you get a good George Kirby, Chris Flexen, and Marco Gonzalez, or whatever they're going to run out in 4-5, does not give me top 5 rotation vibes.
I think the hardest part is the loss in his leadership. Not only just having his arm in the rotation, but you talked about this a lot with your brother, Justin Verlander, and just what he meant to even the Astros rotation, just having a veteran like that with that experience, with a Cy Young Award, and really taking those younger guys under their wing. And Robbie Ray was really taking Logan Gilbert and George Kirby under his wing. So just not even having his arm there on the field, I think it's going to be a huge loss not having his presence there in the clubhouse and in the dugout.
Yeah, and to your point, I imagine he'll still be there much of the time, but he probably won't go on road trips. He'll be in the dugout able to talk to them, but leaders lead by example.
Yep.
Right? And unfortunately, he's not going to be able to. So I would say the Mariners are not anymore a top 5 rotation without Robbie Ray.
All right. On to our next statement. The White Sox need to clean house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this starts at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And by the top, I'm not saying the manager, the GM, but sure,
Ownership. Ooh.
Jerry Reinsdorf
Oh.
has been awful for this team. And it is so frustrating watching what Jerry Reinsdorf has done to this franchise, tearing it down from within, hiring a manager in Tony La Russa, who everyone on planet Earth knew wasn't the answer for this young, exciting team. Everyone knew that wasn't the answer. But Jerry Reinsdorf hires his good pal Tony La Russa anyway and sets the organization back a decade. I mean, it's remarkable how bad they are right now. I picked this team to win the AL Central. We are a month into the season, and I was flat out wrong. This team might come in dead last in the AL Central, and they're far too talented to be doing that. This team has lots of issues, so many issues, and they knew this heading into the year. You have a team with talent, young talent that's capable of winning, but what do you do in the offseason? You go and add Andrew Benintendi and Mike Clevenger? Aside from the fact of the pitcher that Clevenger is, he's not a good clubhouse guy. We can say that at a minimum. So you have a terrible offseason. You have a team that was ready to bounce back and compete, but you don't do anything. And then you cancel the Sox Fest ahead of the season without any explanation. Ownership just cancels it. Nope, sorry, sends out an email, not doing Sox Fest. Why? Because Rick Hahn doesn't want to answer to the fans. Doesn't want to answer to the fans at the one time he ever talks to them before the season, where people can ask him questions. Hell no, he doesn't want to answer their questions because he's sending the organization in the opposite direction. Their team, their franchise, the way that they produce talent, the way that they help their talent become better and better and better is ridiculous. You have a guy in Luis Robert who is supposed to be an MVP caliber player. I think he can be, but he's not getting that. He's not taking that next jump. And it's not just him. So that leads me to think this organization is just poorly run from top to bottom on the inside. This organization has two guys right now, Dylan Cease, Tim Anderson. Dylan Cease is one of the best pitchers in baseball. Tim Anderson will hit 300 rolling out of bed. But nobody else is stepping up. And it's a problem from within for this team. Everybody in the lineup's batting under 220. What are you doing? And it starts at the top, Alex. Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't care as much as he needs to about this team. The Pittsburgh Pirates the other day finally spent a $100 million contract on Brian Reynolds and got off of this list of now 3 teams in Major League Baseball that have never spent $100 million on a player contract. The A's, the Royals, and the Chicago White Sox. Jerry Reinsdorf is worth $2 billion, okay? You walked into Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Spend some money on the White Sox and do better than this fiasco that's going down on the South Side.
Just to put it into perspective, number-wise, the last 5 years, the White Sox have been in the bottom portion of all the Major League Baseball record books. The bottom. 19th best record in baseball, 21st in runs per game, 24th in home runs, 22nd in Major League Baseball in one-run games and day games. Like, that is bad. It's bad.
It's
for a big market team.
As you can tell,
yeah,
it's frustrating.
Heated.
I feel for White Sox fans.
Yeah.
I'm not even a White Sox fan, and I'm this passionate about how frustrating it is that this team that seemingly just can never do it right. And then their talent doesn't get produced correctly. You hear Luis Robert. You have Frank Thomas saying Luis Robert's a 6-tool player. This guy's an MVP, and he has all of that talent. But then it's just like injuries. I think the athletic, the staff that does with injuries, what's that staff called? I'm too fired up to even think about it. The athletic...
the trainers?
The athletic training staff. Thank you. What are you doing? Injuries all the time. At a certain point, you think, well, maybe this player's injury prone, but then you look around and everybody's injured all the time. It's everybody in the organization. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. I feel for White Sox fans right now. They need a complete overhaul to answer the question of do they need to clean house? Yes, but unfortunately, the guy that needs to do it is owning the team and ain't going to clean himself.
Whew. Hot take.
Yeah.
I like it. You're fired up. Our final statement.
Okay.
You mentioned them in that last statement. The Pirates are serious about winning.
Well, so I guess I would say the Pirates are winning.
Yeah.
And they're a lot of fun to watch. But are they serious about winning just because they finally signed a guy to a $100 million contract? Brian Reynolds signs the deal, $106.75 million with the option for 2031. Am I now ready, after all of these years of the Pirates being an embarrassment and Bob Nutting not spending his money on the team, am I now ready to say that they're serious about winning after this deal? I'm not yet, but I could be. But I need to see a lot more than this.
But it's a step in the right direction. And this is the first step you have to take. As you mentioned, they finally got out of that group of the last 4 teams to not spend a $100 million contract on a player. They just did that. That's a step in the right direction.
Yes. However, if somebody that has lied to my face 10 times in a row finally tells me one truth, I'm not all of a sudden going to believe that person's a truth teller.
No, but you're like, okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of space here.
Yeah.
A little bit of wiggle room.
It starts your trust coming back.
Yeah.
This was a great deal for the Pirates, and I'm happy they did it. But I need to see a lot more from Bob Nutting and this organization before I'm ready to say that they're serious about winning. And this team, right now, as we speak, with the way they're playing, they are winning. So let's say they're still winning at the trade deadline. That's going to be the next step for me.
Okay.
What
That's
can
fair.
you do? It's not just, hey, you have these good guys on your team. How about you sign them? Oh, great. That should have been step 1. Brian Reynolds should have been a Pirate for life a year or 2 ago. Okay? Now it becomes, oh, are you serious about winning? Guess what? We're in first place at the trade deadline, surprising everybody. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to go all in and say you believe in us? Or are you going to continue to do what you've been doing and just sell, trade prospects? How are you going to handle it?
So what do you want to see? You want them to pick up a big player at the deadline? That's what you want to see?
I would
if
love
they're
to
in
see
that
that.
position?
Baseball is. I watch Pirates games right now, and they're so much fun.
Yeah.
When PNC Park, who you said you've never
Yeah,
been
that's
there.
one of the few I haven't been to.
One of my absolute favorites. It's one of the best ballparks in baseball. But unfortunately, for the last 5+ years, it's been a ghost town throughout the majority of the year because they don't have a winning product out there, and I don't blame the fans one bit. But look back on how good this fan base is and how good they can be. It's Pittsburgh, diehard fans. The blackout years ago. I still, to this day, when somebody asks me some of the greatest baseball games of all time, I point to the blackout game. Just the fan environment, everything about that. The fan base is great, getting fans back, and we're seeing them come back because this team is so much fun to watch. You got McCutchen back in the black and gold, having a good year. You got Bay, who's so much fun to watch. Brian Hayes over at third base, who doesn't get the credit for being the best defensive third baseman in baseball. This team is great. I've loved to see it. As of right now, their roster doesn't scream playoffs. Go get somebody at the trade deadline. Okay? Somebody will be out there to go get. I would love to see it. And that's how I can finally change this answer to, are the Pirates serious about winning? They've taken a good step. Am I ready to say they're serious yet? No.